memorandum of understanding. And this MOU, within the context of this MOU, it enables us to do a lot of work to engage the National Gene Bank at various levels. These include farmer capacitation for plant genetic resource collection, conservation, participatory plant breeding, participatory varietal selection, and participatory varietal evaluation. And these components, we are actually doing this through farmer field schools. We have established more than 100 farmer field schools in various districts within Zimbabwe. And through these farmer field schools, we are training farmers together with the National Gene Bank on various concepts of genetic utilization, genetic conservation. We also engaged the National Gene Bank on joint collection missions, documentation of plant genetic resources, collection of germplasm. You find that when you get to our seed banks, we also have duplicate accessions that are within the National Gene Bank for the purposes of conservation. And at times we repatriate genetic resources back to the communities. Once genetic resources have become extinct, we repatriate from the National Gene Bank back to the communities so that at least they have those genetic resources within their localities, within their jurisdiction. Maybe you can move to the next slide. And you find that within the protocols of the MOU, there are a number of activities that we do together with the National Gene Bank. For example, when there are national, international workshops, we share representation, or we have dual representation with the government and also with CTDO. I think COP15, the government was represented and CTDO was also represented. And recently, we had a workshop where we were drafting recommendations that will be presented at the United Nations Food System Summit. And we worked on this together with the National Gene Bank to ensure that we've got well-consolidated and well-established recommendations to move forward in terms of farmer-managed seed systems. And we've also been working together with the National Gene Bank to draft a number of legislation. Having worked with the government through the National Gene Bank on various aspects, we've actually been tasked as CTDO to draft legislation on access and benefit sharing. And that legislation has come into law and it's actually in use as we speak. We've also facilitated the drafting of the farmers' rights legislation. This is actually due to our linkages with the National Gene Bank. You can move forward to the next slide. And here we are just showing the different aspects of how the National Gene Bank relates to the community seed bank. So you will find that with the community seed bank, there are samples of all accessions that are collected from this community seed banks for safekeeping, and the community seed banks can actually request these accessions over time as and when they require them. And the National Gene Bank also assists periodically for repatriation of lost germplasm and assists CSBs in the regeneration of germplasm. And when you look at our community seed banks, you're looking at conservation of seed to prevent genetic erosion, information and knowledge exchange, and there's also local experimentation through the farmer field schools and provision of options for smallholder farming households to conserve, access, and promote on-farm utilization of the local seed varieties. The next slide, please. So we have actually noted over time, from the time we started linkages with the National Gene Banks, that there's a lot that can be done in terms of the collaborative linkages. There's a lot we can do in terms of conserving of plant genetic resources, development of joint program of works between the community seed banks and the national gene banks. This enables building of trust and building of bridges in biodiversity conservation. As Dr. Fada alluded to yesterday, that anyone who requires to develop or improve crops or even animals, they would need genetic resources from the grassroots, and the community seed bank becomes a starting point. Our local communities become the starting point, because that's where you get the broader genetic base. And there's also working together in prioritization of scope of works that will benefit both systems, local level and also at national level. And to continue strengthening the collaborative linkages, there is need for joint meetings and also joint workshops designed to create awareness and capacity building and information sharing on biological diversity, and also farmer managed systems, to ensure that our plant genetic resources are not they are not eroded, and we do not lose most of our genetic resources, considering the effects of climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marceline. Thank you very much for sharing CTGT decades-long efforts for the community's efforts in community seed banks, agrobiodiversity management. Thank you very much for sharing these presentations today. I would like to invite next our panel members. Joyce, could you please unmute your microphone, and floor is yours now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Abishka. I'm Joyce Adokarach, working with the National Agricultural Research Organization, particularly under the Plant Genetic Resources Center in Uganda, that houses the National Gene Bank. Well, as a way of background, we know that over 85% of farmers in developing countries depend on informal seed system compared to the formal seed system. And according to a study that was carried out in 2008-2009 by the National Gene Bank and other partners, we carried out a seed survey and realized that there are a number of challenges that farmers face in acquiring seed. For instance, seed was quite expensive. They were of poor quality. They were limited in diversity, and some seed sources were not willing to give out their seeds, and some seeds were actually just not, some diversity were actually not available, and the seeds could not be acquired on time. Certain seeds you'd only plant for a season, and you couldn't get much yield in the following season. They were actually not climate resilient. So, looking at these challenges, we realized that coming up with a community seed bank was a solution. And the first community seed bank that was established in Uganda was in 2010. So the idea of community seed banking is fairly a new concept in Uganda. And since then we have actually come up with, there are a number of community seed banks that have come up, and basing on the farmers' stories, we realize that the farmers are now able to access good quality diverse seed from this community seed bank. All the challenges above are actually being solved by the community seed bank. Seeds farmers can easily access. They are at a reachable areas within the farmers' community. And also as a result, in the newly passed community rather in the newly passed national seed policy, it has been one of the strategies is to establish community seed banks. So we are actually very happy about that. And also we realized that we needed to expand on the activities of the community seed banks. So for the past few years, you've undertaken a number of scaling up of community seed bank activities, one of which was to develop the protocol that is to be launched today, a protocol between the community seed bank and national seed bank. We went and collected data for that. And then we also developed a website for community seed banks in Uganda. Actually, in the website, it is an ongoing activity, still not yet complete, but we believe when it's complete, it will be a one-stop center in Uganda for community seed banking activities, where you find all the databases for all community seed banking there. And we've also gone ahead to do a translation of booklets for community seed banks in Uganda in the local languages. That has been done in 2 languages. And we've also developed a standard operating procedure for establishing community seed banks in Uganda. So those are some of the activities that we've been doing in Uganda in the past few years. Next. We realize that National Gene Bank actually have played a very pivotal contribution to community seed banking. First of all, in the construction of community seed banks itself, it is coordinated by the National Gene Bank, and the National Gene Bank does the capacity building for the farmers, rather for the management of the community seed bank, capacity building in different trainings in different fields, talk about the bookkeeping, record keeping, business, entrepreneurship, seed multiplication. So the farmers actually have confidence in the national, the community seed banks actually have confidence in the National Gene Bank. And then the National Gene Bank also coordinates the exchange visits among community seed banks. So these exchange visits really facilitate farmers to exchange information, the diversity that they have. So, and farmers believe in themselves when they hear from each other. So that is one thing that has also built the confidence of community seed bank in National Gene Bank. Other than that, there is also, we find that all the germplasm, all the seeds that are in the community seed bank are conserved in the National Gene Bank, and farmers feel their diversity is saved somewhere. And we also, as a National Gene Bank, we also encourage exhibitions, agriculture shows, participation of community seed banks into these activities. Usually we actually do the activities alongside each other as we do the exhibitions. National Gene Bank, Community Seed Bank, such that they are seen to be doing similar work and benefiting from each other. And then another thing is we've also coordinated the community seed banks with the Ministry of Agriculture, Department of Seed Certification, and they have gone ahead, the seed certification staff have gone ahead to visit the community seed banks to test the diversity that is in the seed bank there, and actually they have given the community seed banks certificates to produce certified seeds. So we have some community seed banks in Uganda that are producing certified seed. And another thing is the National Gene Bank also provide like a backstopping for the community seed banks. So if there are issues with the community seed banks, they run back to the National Gene Bank and are able to get advice from the National Gene Bank. So those are some of the pivotal contributions of the Gene Bank to community seed banking. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Joyce. It's very interesting to see the National Plant Genetic Resource Program, National Gene Bank itself, directly involving in supporting community seed bank in Uganda. There are a few examples in the world. Such initiative is taken by the National Plant Genetic Resource Programs. Now I would like to invite our other panel member, Dominic, to share the case experience from Kenya. Dominic, please unmute your mic. Yeah, floor is yours.
Thank you for that. And yeah, it's a good day for us here to be part of this panel. In that in Kenya, we are behind other countries, and we hope to be where they are someday. I would like to introduce a bit the organization I work for, Seed Savers Network Kenya. In that is a national grassroots organization that promotes global diversity conservation in Kenya. And we basically work with small scale farmers where we promote community seed banks. And in Kenya, we haven't had an experience of working closely with the National Gene Bank, but in the last 2 years, we have seen the changes that can help in terms of improving the work of community seed banks if the relationship or collaboration is there. And I would like to share the experience that we had in Kenya. And in that, we came together and realized that in Kenya, we needed to upscale the work of community seed banks because there are various organizations that are also promoting the concept. And we have a National Gene Bank, which is Genetic Resource Research Institute, mandated by Kenyan laws to undertake genetic material conservation. So what we did in this intervention was to see how well we can build that linkage between the community seed banks and the National Gene Bank. And it has worked so well in that phase, we have been able to train partners on germplasm gap analysis, where they have been able to go back to their communities and have been able to identify existing gaps, which we now use the report to obtain materials from the gene bank, something that we have never done before. Also, we have been able also to develop community seed bank establishment guideline with support from the National Gene Bank. As you all know, the National Gene Bank is they are technical in terms of various aspects in relation to seed conservation, and they were very useful in terms of helping us shape these guidelines that we currently use in various seed banks in Kenya. Also, we had a challenge in terms of policy framework, in that in Kenya we don't have recognition of community seed banks, and through this collaboration we were able to develop a policy brief, basically targeting our local governments for them to start appreciating and recognizing community seed banks so that they can be able to support them. And this is an area that I've seen, for instance, in Uganda. They have been able to develop some of these frameworks, which I believe also, if we continue working with the National Gene Bank someday, we'll be able to have a framework for seed banks here in Kenya. And also, we were able to request for some materials from the Gene Bank that we introduced back to the communities. And now farmers are able to multiply. And as you can see in the pictures, they have already started to bulk those materials back to their seed banks. This is increasing the diversity at our farms. And we believe if we continue doing this, we'll be able to have variety, because at the end of the day, farmers would like to have a diversity and be able to test which varieties are doing so well in their respective localities. Please proceed to the next slide. This was a training on the germplasm gap analysis that was facilitated by the National Gene Bank. And these more than 7 organizations who also promote community seed banks, and they are now having the skills and tools which they have already integrated in their various programs. And we hope moving forward we'll be able to have a report capturing various parts in the country, showing the diversity that is there and the gap that is existing for introduction maybe in the coming years. You can proceed. This is the brief that I talked about. This is when we engaged our county government or local governments. We were able to engage various local governments here in Kenya and share the brief, the policy brief, which tried to sensitize them, because one of the major problems here in Kenya is that information is still low, and even the government agencies, based on our experience, they have not had an experience of interacting closely with the community seed banks, and they don't understand exactly what is the role of these institutions in terms of helping the communities. And we have through this engagement that they are good institutions that if they are provided with some of these materials, we can be able to move a bit faster in supporting community seed banks here in Kenya. Next slide. Thank you so much. And from my end, I know our Kenyan case study is a bit young. And next time, I hope we'll have a bit information in terms of the audience, in terms of the work that community seed banks and national gene banks are doing. But now the progress and the linkage is very promising. And we have seen the changes in terms of ensuring that we are able to handle our seeds properly. And also we are able to also provide linkage between community seed banks and also the National Gene Bank. It is also the first time in history that we have been able to visit our National Gene Bank. Even farmers that are having the community seed bank, they have never heard about the National Gene Bank. But now, at least the information is also going back to the farmers. They know if they need some seeds, there is somewhere they can go and obtain them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dominic. A very interesting case from Kenya. I recall back our meeting in Uganda. It was 2019, and you have moved very fast. We discussed a lot of challenges, interesting initiatives, but we could see a lot of progress you have done it. Thanks a lot. So now, Arnab, we will go to the next slides. I would like to share briefly about the protocols that we are already the launching of this protocols today. And then I could see in the chat box, Roni Vernoy also put the link to download this protocol. So please download the protocols for your own use, and then also give us a feedback. Next slide, please. Turn up. Just to give a background, I already mentioned, because there are a lot of some recent examples and initiatives between the collaborations, community seed banks and national gene banks. In a number of countries, we have seen these successful examples, but it's not taking place in many countries of the world that could potentially benefit a lot from these partnerships. But in most of the cases, these collaborations are informal to conduct a number of joint activities. For instance, organizing seed fair, or organizing collections, characterizations, sharing the germplasms from the gene banks or community seed banks. These are the joint efforts being done in a number of countries. But there was also very increased demand of collaborations, a kind of protocols that set the formal partnerships between these two institutions, national gene banks and community seed banks. And that's the whole purpose of the team that work together to develop these protocols. And this protocol will help to set these formal partnerships where this has not been taken place, or it also further solidify this process in the countries where the collaboration is already happening, but there is a gap of formal collaborations. So we expect and we hope this protocol will contribute tremendously to the partners, to the stakeholders involving and in the genetic resource and seed systems development. Next, please. Slide, Arno. Yeah, the key objectives of these protocols to foster coordinations and collaboration between the national gene banks and community seed banks for the conservation, sustainable use, and seed productions and exchange, that all contributing towards national seed systems, building stronger national seed systems, contributing to the healthier food systems, and achievement of the seed and food sovereignties of the communities and the nations. When you look at the content, it's the protocol itself, the key contents in the protocols that elaborate different articles, which you can see in the protocols. But the key content are what are the roles of the national gene banks? What are the roles of the community seed banks? What are the principles of the collaborations? What kind of activities can be done together? And what are the rules and regulations to establish these collaborations? So these are the major content of the protocols, and it elaborate in details. Next slide, please. No, just go back. Yeah. So this is a brief introduction of the protocols. We really welcome your feedback on the current version of the protocols. We would still like to see the improvement. We also call upon the national gene banks, community seed banks, and the stakeholders involving in these partnerships to implement these protocols in your country. We are also, together with our partners, we are developing these seed hub initiatives to support and to realize the implementation of these protocols, to help capacity building, to share the information between the countries. And this seed hub initiative is now more targeting Eastern, Southern Africa, but it's also scope is a broader, global, in Africa and beyond, in Asia. So with this message, just a very brief highlights of the content of the protocols. Now I would like to move forward to the panel discussions, and we will also pick your questions that you have already put in a chat box. Before we taking the questions from the panel, from the audience, I would like to ask questions to our panel that also captures some of the questions that's already in the chat box. I would like to ask with the Marceline Frisires, how did you manage to lead this change in our countries, like your efforts been since 1992, and especially the community seed banks in 1996, and this partnership between the community seed bank and national gene bank together? So how did you manage to take these all efforts and to make this change happen in the country?
Thank you so much, Abhishka. It all started with the Rio Earth Summit. That's where we had side talks with the government delegation that had also gone for the Rio Earth Summit. And from then, our collaboration was informal. And over time, because we were working on biodiversity conservation, we also have a policy and advocacy unit, which was also looking at issues of plant genetic resources, farmers' rights, access and benefit sharing. So we were looking at all those aspects, and further engagement of the government, further engagement of the National Gene Bank. We continued over time, and with the interest that we aroused within the government circles, we then managed to forge ahead. That then ended up in us having the memorandum of understanding, where we then had inside working systems within the Ministry of Agriculture, together with the seed services unit within the Department of Research and Specialist Services, and also the National Gene Bank. That's how we have proceeded over time to ensure that we have conserved our plant genetic resources.
Yeah, thanks, Marceline. now the Joyce. So from your presentation, it's a National Plant Genetic Resource Program, National Gene Bank itself involved in supporting community seed bank, establishing community seed banks in Uganda. So how do you recommend, what do you recommend to the others in the audience who want to replicate or learn from your experiences to make that success? Could you unmute your mic?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you so much, Abishka, for that question. Well, what I recommend to the listeners is that I think partnership embracement is quite paramount in community seed banking, because as a national gene bank, you cannot reach every corner of the country. So you need to embrace partnership with the stakeholders who are doing similar activities. Because I've recently, as I was actually doing some work, I realized there are community seed banks that have been established in different parts of the country, not by the National Gene Bank, but by other organizations following the same principles, and then they are good to go. Then another capacity building of the community seed bank management, it is quite paramount. This builds the trust with the farmers as well, because if farmers know that the seed form, if they trust the source of the seed bank.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we missed your last few words. Thanks, Joyce, to share your experience, and your recommendations to the audience. I would like to go to Dominic. We have many practitioners in the audience today. So what do you recommend them to focus on to support building linkage between the community seed banks and the national gene banks? I know you have gone through a lot of struggles, so
Yeah.
your experience is very important for the audience to learn.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And that question squarely fits the situation we are in here in Kenya. And I believe that in the audience, we have various practitioners, you said, maybe from the government, the National Gene Bank, also researchers, be it breeders, seed companies, sometimes if they're there, and also farmers. In that, in this, there are so many challenges that community seed banks are facing, which I believe each one of us has a role to play in terms of helping and reshaping the cost. Because here in Kenya, as I said from the beginning, we have not had that interaction maybe like 8 years ago, because the experience just changed recently when we started to work closely with them. And one area that I believe that we also need to think about as practitioners is about building technical capacity in terms of seed production and seed handling for the community seed banks, because everywhere you go, you find there has been some elements of seed quality, and I would like these seed banks to serve the communities where they are. So if there is anything that we can do to help in terms of providing information that can improve in terms of seed production, seed handling, and storage, it can help so much, and we can have studies around that. Also, I know there are some challenges in terms of financing for the operations of the National Gene Bank and also the community seed banks. In that sometimes you find, for instance, even if the National Gene Bank would like to share some materials, for instance, for reintroduction to the communities, they are unable to multiply those seeds because they don't have more partners that are supporting those programs. This means that the National Gene Bank won't be able to supply materials that are required by the seed banks. So also that is an area in terms of seed multiplication for the seeds that are there in the National Gene Bank, how can we help around that? Also, in terms of lobbying and advocacy, different countries, they have their issues, but here I've realized that when you talk about seed banks, when you talk about National Gene Bank, the law is not very clear. For the National Gene Bank, we have it. For the seed bank, it's not there, despite our constitution requiring that we have protection of our indigenous varieties. So at the end of the day, there is a lot of work that needs to be done around lobbying and advocacy to ensure that our respective countries, they're able to recognize the seed banks. Also, there's this element of ensuring at the end of the day, we are transparent, and also we are able to build that trust between the farmers, the seed companies, and the National Gene Bank. Sometimes we have seen misappropriation of what farmers own and even the associated traditional knowledge. So we also need to think about if you like to harness these and to improve this linkage, how well can we be able to protect and safeguard the plant genetic materials and associated traditional knowledge that farmers are having, so that at the end of the day, we won't have cases of biopiracy. Also, as I conclude, we also need to think about the sustainability of our community seed banks. And in this, then it means we must be able also to think about how can we help in terms of trying to reach to those farmers. Maybe also when we are talking about seed improvement, how can we employ participatory plant breeding approach so that if we are developing seed enterprises for farmers, then we know that at the end of the day, that will bring some income and also sustainability for the seed banks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. There's the challenges within the National Gene Banks, challenges within the community seed banks, and then the collaborations would help to overcome those challenges. Now I would like to invite Ronnie Bernoy. Ronnie, you are really looking after all the chats that's coming through this during the whole sessions. Could you please pick some of the questions and then we could ask with the panels.
Yes.
We have a 5 minutes left.
Yeah, we have only 5 minutes and we have many very good questions. Thank you for the excellent presentations and for the very good questions. There is quite some questions about what are the mechanisms for the flow of seeds from the community seed bank to the National Gene Bank, and also the other way back. Dominique alluded already a little bit to this. How can we assure that the varieties that farmers have developed and improved and that are in the community seed banks and that are then given to the National Gene Bank and maybe later to breeders, how can we assure that they are well protected and that no abuse or biopiracy takes place? So I think that is a very important question. Anyone who would like to respond?
Maybe I can come in, Ronnie.
Yes.
Because I had also tried to answer that, in that our National Gene Bank, how can they be empowered to be able to develop a variety list in terms of what they are having, their sessions? We have tried in the past, and there has been some conflicts. Giving a case study in Kenya, between the seed regulator that usually develops the national variety list for commercial seeds and the National Gene Bank, which usually conserves materials from various communities. So I believe the solution could be, how well can we have a policy that can enhance recognition of what the National Gene Bank are having?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Marcelini, you have been working on legislation already to protect access and to regulate access and benefit sharing and also to regulate farmers' rights. Is that the way to do it?
Yes. The other way we were looking at it is access to plant genetic resources has to be a two-way process where whoever is accessing ensures that there's a benefit to the community. And in this case, the National Gene Bank has the mandate to ensure that no one patents genetic resources that have been taken from the communities. So it's a mandate that is within the National Gene Bank. No wonder the need for that, those strong links between the National Gene Bank and the community seed bank.
Yes, thank you. And I guess the development of this protocol that we have just presented also has a clause, a section on how to make sure that this will not happen. Maybe one final question is about what types of accessions from the National Gene Bank go back to the community seed banks? How does it work? Maybe Joyce, you could give an example of what types of accessions are farmers interested in to receive from the National Gene Bank?
Yes, thank you so much, Ronnie, for that question. Well, of late, farmers have been experiencing a lot to do with climate change. So farmers would love actually to have climate resilient seeds. And this actually, as a National Gene Bank, we've been able to acquire germplasm from our neighboring countries and countries elsewhere and share this with the farmers. So this has really been a good step working with the farmers and the National Gene Bank. Thank you.
And Ronnie, we have to wrap up now.
Yes.
Time is
over to you.
Okay. Thanks all the panel members for excellent deliberations and sharing all efforts done. Thanks, Ronnie, for picking the questions. We are sorry we could not pick all your questions because of time limitations. Thank you very much for joining these sessions today. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Avishkar. And before we wrap up, I have pasted a link in the chat. I hope I'm not muted. Yeah. So if any of the attendees have any questions, they can put it in the Padlet. So it's a very nice tool where you can put your questions, and it is arranged in a very nice way, session by session. And so if you have any questions, you please put it there. And I would also urge our panelists too, just to have a look. You just click the link and you can answer it. It's very easy to just respond. If you see any questions, you can even put your views there. So that is also there. And so thank you very much. I thank all the panelists and all the attendees, and I can see many known persons in the attendee list too. So thank you very much for attending this. And I have put a link for our next session in the seed sector transformation in practice in ISSD Uganda. That's another session that is going on in the next session. So I would ask you to you can go there and you can attend that session there. So thank you everyone. Thank you very much.